Welcome to the Audiobook Chamber, where timeless ideas meet mindful storytelling. From the Wellness Chamber, we explore the myth of normal, trauma, illness, and healing in a toxic culture by Dr. Gabor Maté. In a world that praises busyness, productivity, and emotional detachment, Dr. Maté reveals an unsettling truth. What we call normal might actually be deeply unhealthy. He invites us to rediscover what it truly means to be well, not by escaping discomfort, but by embracing our authentic selves. Let's begin this journey into the hidden wounds of our modern world and the path toward healing them. What if everything we've been taught to see as normal is, in fact, profoundly unhealthy? In the myth of normal, Gabor Maté invites us to look deeper, to question whether our daily stress, anxiety, and disconnection are really personal flaws or symptoms of a culture that has forgotten what it means to be human. From childhood, we're conditioned to equate worth with productivity, success with status, and happiness with external approval. We silence emotions to appear composed, trade authenticity for acceptance, and wear exhaustion like a badge of honor. All of it, Maté suggests, forms a social script that prizes conformity over connection and efficiency over empathy, a formula for quiet suffering disguised as normalcy. This cultural normal carries a cost. Beneath the surface of our civilized lives lies a reservoir of unacknowledged pain and collective trauma. Our bodies, unable to lie, store what our minds refuse to face. The residue of suppressed emotions, chronic tension, and unmet needs. Illness, physical or mental, becomes the language through which the body speaks when the mind cannot. Depression, anxiety, autoimmune disease, and burnout are not random misfortunes, but reflections of an environment that demands disconnection from self in exchange for belonging. Healing, Maté reminds us, begins not in self-blame, but in self-understanding. Our pain is not proof of weakness, but evidence of sensitivity in an insensitive world. To heal, we must stop adapting to dysfunction and start reclaiming authenticity. We must learn to listen inward, to feel, to question, and to reconnect with what is real beneath the noise. True wellness is not the absence of pain, but the presence of wholeness. It's the courage to live aligned with our truth, to allow vulnerability, and to honor emotion as wisdom. In the end, the journey is not about fixing ourselves. It's about remembering who we were before the world told us to be normal. For centuries, Western medicine has upheld the illusion that mind and body are separate, one governed by reason, the other by biology. Gabor Maté exposes this as a dangerous myth, revealing how emotion, thought, and physiology form an inseparable whole. Every unspoken truth leaves its trace. Swallowed anger becomes tension, buried grief becomes fatigue, denied fear becomes illness. The body, unable to lie, translates what the mind refuses to face, turning emotional pain into physical symptoms that demand attention. Maté argues that disease is not a malfunction, but a message, the body's intelligent attempt to communicate distress. Chronic pain, autoimmune disorders, anxiety, and fatigue are not random. They are the cost of disconnection. When we suppress our truth to stay safe, please others, or meet expectations, the body bears the burden. The immune, nervous, and hormonal systems, all linked to emotion, respond as one. A wound in the heart becomes a wound in the body. We live in a culture that rewards composure and punishes vulnerability. From childhood, we're taught to smile, to obey, to be fine, even when we're not. We adapt by repressing emotion, mistaking numbness for strength, until the body can no longer hold the silence. Stress becomes chronic. Tension becomes identity. What society calls normal is, in truth, sustained disconnection. Healing begins when we listen. The body speaks through tightness, pain, sleeplessness, and fatigue, signals not of weakness, but of truth. When we give voice to what's buried, the systems within us realign. Health, Mate teaches, is not the absence of disease but the presence of authenticity, the freedom to feel, to express, and to be. In the end, the body never lies. It remembers every emotion unspoken and every truth suppressed. And when we finally learn to listen, it guides us back to wholeness, to the unity of mind, body, and self. Every adult is a continuation of their childhood, not just in memory, but in physiology, emotion, and identity. In those tender, impressionable years, a child absorbs the emotional atmosphere of their home like air itself. A parent's unspoken anxieties, frustrations, or absence of warmth silently shape the child's nervous system. When love feels conditional, something earned through obedience, achievement, or silence, the child learns to adapt for survival, to please, to perform, or to disappear. These coping strategies, born from necessity, harden into invisible armor, protection that once kept the child safe but later becomes a prison for the adult self. Gabor Maté reminds us that trauma is not only what happened, but also what didn't, the touch never offered, the comfort never given, the emotional attunement that never arrived. A child who wasn't truly seen learns to disconnect from their own feelings to preserve attachment. They trade authenticity for belonging, mistaking compliance for love. Over time, the body and brain reorganize around this early absence, wiring patterns of self-denial, anxiety, or hyperindependence that echo across decades. These early adaptations silently sculpt who we become, how we relate, love, trust, and cope with pain. Healing, Mate suggests, begins with compassion, not as an abstract virtue, but as a courageous act of self-recognition. It is the willingness to meet the frightened, unmet child within us with tenderness rather than judgment. When we see that our defenses were once creative acts of survival, we can begin to release them with gratitude instead of shame. The armor that protected us has served its purpose. It no longer needs to define us. To heal is to turn inward and listen, to offer the presence we once needed but never received. Only then can authenticity take the place of adaptation and connection replace protection. In an age where everyone seems connected, loneliness has quietly become the great epidemic of our time. Screens link billions, yet hearts drift further apart. We scroll endlessly, chasing validation through likes and fleeting approval, mistaking visibility for belonging. Surrounded by constant noise, we lose the ability to listen, to ourselves, to others, to the silence that reveals truth. We have become a culture addicted to motion, numbing discomfort with productivity, distraction, and consumption. In the race to stay busy, we abandon the deeper need to simply be. Beneath the surface of this digital connection lies a quiet emptiness, a profound hunger for meaning, for presence, for genuine human warmth. Gabor Maté reveals that this collective disconnection lies at the heart of modern suffering. The human nervous system evolved for safety through closeness, empathy, and shared emotion, yet we now live in chronic stress, deprived of genuine relational nourishment. The body mirrors this alienation. Fatigue, anxiety, insomnia, and illness arise not from weakness, but from unmet emotional needs. When connection is replaced by comparison and authenticity by performance, the self begins to fracture. Healing, Maté suggests, is found not in more achievement or distraction, but in reconnection. The cure begins in relationship, with ourselves, with others, and with the natural world. When we slow down and offer presence instead of performance, compassion instead of judgment, something within us begins to mend. We rediscover what it truly means to be human, to be seen, heard, and accepted without masks. Connection, Maté reminds us, is not optional. It is medicine, the quiet antidote to the loneliness of modern life, and the doorway back to wholeness. Healing, Maté reminds us, is not just a private act, it's a collective responsibility. We often imagine recovery as something that happens in solitude, in therapy rooms, or quiet moments of meditation. But true healing, he argues, requires transforming the very culture that made us unwell. A society that prizes productivity over presence, competition over compassion, and performance over authenticity cannot nurture healthy people, only exhausted ones. Our modern systems, schools, workplaces, even healthcare, are structured to extract rather than restore. We celebrate those who sacrifice rest for results, while quietly normalizing burnout, loneliness, and emotional detachment. Children learn to excel, not to feel. Adults learn to endure, not to connect. In such an environment, even the strongest will falter because no individual can truly thrive in a culture that denies its own humanity. Made envisions a radical reimagining of wellness. Workplaces that honor rest as much as achievement. Classrooms that teach emotional literacy alongside intellect. Healthcare that listens before diagnosing. And public policies that place empathy, not efficiency, at the heart of civilization. When compassion becomes systemic, healing ripples outward, from the personal to the collective, from one heart to another. One person's authenticity gives permission for another's. When empathy replaces judgment, connection replaces isolation. A culture built on care begins to heal itself, not through perfection, but through presence. In the end, Mate's message is both simple and revolutionary. The future of wellness is not found in isolation, but in community. Healing begins within us, but it must extend beyond us, into our families, institutions, and societies, until the world itself becomes a place where authenticity can finally breathe. The myth of normal reminds us that healing ourselves cannot be separated from healing the world around us. The stress, illness, and disconnection we experience are not signs of personal weakness, but reflections of a society that has forgotten how to nurture the human spirit. Wellness, Mate teaches, is not a privilege for the few, it is our birthright. To reclaim it, we must learn to feel again, to honor our emotions instead of numbing them, and to live with authenticity rather than performance. Healing begins when we reconnect with our bodies, our communities, and our shared humanity. Dr. Gabor Mate's message echoes through every page. True health arises not from perfection, but from presence, from the courage to be real in a world that rewards the mask. You've been listening to The Myth of Normal, brought to life by the Audiobook Chamber. If this journey sparked your thoughts, subscribe and explore more from our curated playlists, from mindset to wealth, entrepreneur to power, each designed to expand the way you think, live, and grow. Because here, at the Audiobook Chamber, we believe that true wealth begins in the mind.